You know, when you look at a basketball team, you've got to have your starting five and you have to have your bench players. Without all of that, you can't have a championship team. And I said, you can't have 5 all-stars as a starter. You got to have good backup players. You got to have bench players. And sometimes guys will get frustrated when you don't have everybody being high performers. But the reality is you need performance in all areas, and everybody's going to have a part that they take in the team, whether it's you're a high scorer, you're a high defender. And so when I look at my team in a whole, I look at the gifts that each person brings to the table, and I have to make sure it's a gift that benefits the team, right? And I always say the growth in a company is not based on the revenue or the amount of people you have. I know companies that got 50 people and they don't make near the revenue or the impact. And so my saying lately is growth is not the people or the money, it's the impact that you have on people or the community. And that's kind of what we live on, and that's our slogan, standing for greatness. And we try to carry that in all things that we do.
How can someone even realize that he is in the position to analyze other people, or he is actually making the right analysis?
Now, as an owner, I think that has to be your gift. I mean, that has to be something either you have to study on or learn it or gifted with, is to analyze people. And that's what good leaders do, right? They're able to read the room and understand people's emotions and needs and then tend to those or whatever it is, right? For instance, you ask, how can you analyze somebody's gifts, right? So in my company, we all start off as a junior project manager, and you have to show that you can network to get to a senior level, which is in-home sales, or get to that level of where, hey, we're going to bring you to the next step. We have to see that you can actually perform high here, right?
You have to have that mentality of improving constantly, even if you are not an A player. At times, if you are not an A player, you are not an high performer, but you have that curiosity to learn things, to learn new ways of doing things, and to do your best, then God will reward you in some ways.
Not everything always needs to be perfect. And by taking your hands off, not only will you, it's like your kids, you have to let them fail. By their failures, and then you don't reprimand them, you teach them. Every time somebody fails in my company, they've never felt reprimanded. I hope they've always felt like they've been given grace, and then it's a learning moment. Now, if it's negligent and they've tried to learn it too many times, then it's like, now you're gonna pay for it. And normally you would say there's no way this guy could do sales, but you know what changed it? And then I'm gonna elaborate. He's a bodybuilder. He's 18, 19 years old, won competitions. And what I saw in him was whatever he's doing, he's driven at.
And I have never ever thought of it like this, that if you have all the charismatic guys, they're gonna collide with each other. Thank you for sharing that.
As an owner, it'll make you go crazy.
And you know that the other person is trying to deceive you and he is lying maybe, or he is just not being genuine. How do you end that interview, or how do you make sure that this person, if he goes to the next interview, at least he has the context that he does not need to say these things to impress someone?
Did your parents know when you were lying or trying to deceive them? And could you tell, but they never said anything?
I think they know every time, and they do
know
not
every
say a
time.
thing.
When you're a parent, you know. You just know. And when somebody's doing something or being a certain way, it's like a kid. You know when they're lying, but not every battle's worth being fought.
Welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of the Roofing Millionaires podcast. In this episode, we are sitting down with Steve Adjemian from Red Rock Roofing in Colorado, and this episode is all about people. You will learn how to hire effectively, how to manage people, how to build a culture in your roofing company, and what actually separates a random roofing company from a proper roofing organization. Whether you are a leader, a manager, or a crew member, this episode has something for you, because it will teach you how you can become part of a team that is dedicated and focused towards a mission. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want us to bring more roofing experts like this in Season 2 who can help you to learn the things that you actually need in your roofing business. Let's dive in. What is the difference that you feel is between a typical roofing company and an organized roofing company? Or let's just say, what is the difference between a typical roofing company and a roofing organization?
That's a great question. You know, I'm in Colorado, so there's a lot of roofing companies. So we run into it all. I think when you get into it and you start looking at what's out there, I think there's 3 things that really separate what the difference between the high level performers and the low level performers. It's obviously the 3 P's: people, process, procedures. We're all carrying the same product, but people process procedures. But really, it's culture and leadership is kind of the thing that separates people. When you got clean systems and processes, that's going to help people do their jobs easier. They're not going to feel so overwhelmed, and it's going to help them perform better. So your sales guys are going to do better. Your production's going to do better, and people aren't going to get so frustrated. And that really starts with leadership. And so when you have leadership, creates the culture. And then also we got to make sure that those, once again, process and procedures. So leadership, process, and procedures, if I had to put that in 3 words.
Perfect. And I agree with you on this, that leadership is the key component if we are looking to actually build something or build a roofing company that is going to last for decades. When we talk about leadership, Steve, I think that even I read a book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, and he says the same thing as well. Before working on anything, we have to work on our people. And when you are a leader of the company, one of the key responsibilities that you have is having the right people in the right seats. And you mentioned that as well, that you have to have high performers and low performers. They are both there. So how can someone identify that, how to put the right people in the right seats? Because what I see in these days is that most people, even if they are in the leadership positions, they do not have this capability to analyze people in this way.
We're going to go all over the road on this one because it's, you could talk about this all day, right? And it's funny. I was watching a social media video that one of my guys put out, and he was like, just giving thanks to me about, and then he was like rephrasing something I said. And a lot of times when I talk to these guys, I reference sports because a lot of guys understand sports. So I said, when you look at a basketball team, you've got to have your starting 5 and you have to have your bench players. Without all of that, you can't have a championship team. And I said, you can't have 5 all-stars as a starter. You got to have good backup players. You got to have bench players. And sometimes guys will get frustrated when you don't have everybody being high performers. But the reality is you need performance in all areas, and everybody's going to have a part that they take in the team, whether it's you're a high scorer, you're a high defender. And so when I look at my team in a whole, I look at the gifts that each person brings to the table, and I have to make sure it's a gift that benefits the team, right? Now, if you have a negative person or somebody that's constantly negative, then we have to start looking at character. And anybody that knows me, I think when it comes to good leadership, you don't focus on the numbers. I mean, that's an old school way of thinking is, where's your numbers at? Where's your numbers at? But people want to feel valued. So I think with good leadership and somebody, maybe a manager will do that. But when you look at leadership, you want to say, where's your heart at? Where's your character at? And through the byproduct of the character will come the numbers. So a leader that's constantly focused on numbers typically is going to put a lot of stress on somebody, and you're going to get lower performance, versus focusing on character to bring guys up, to make young men leaders is what I've always focused on. So you have to understand, can this guy be moldable? Is his character good? And we just need to refine it so that he can be the best producer that he can be. Or is this something where he's not moldable, and either his outside lifestyle isn't good character, which then bleeds into work. And so there's all these kind of factors that you look at with leadership to understand, where do you fit on the team? Are you a starting 5? Are you a bench player? You need them both. And so where am I going to fit you in? Are you going to be a backup? Are you the bench player that is okay to come in and maybe not make high dollars, but are you in a position to be trained, which is what you want to do, right? Bench players stay on the bench. They want to be trained to move up. And if you can do that organically, obviously it's not basketball where you just have 5-on-5. You can create that team to be bigger and bigger. So the starting lineup gets bigger and the bench gets bigger if you can keep doing this right. And so, that's really how I kind of run my organization, is by really focusing on character. And I always say the growth in a company is not based on, and I think I told you this last time, the revenue or the amount of people you have. I know companies that got 50 people and they don't make near the revenue or the impact. And so my saying lately is, growth is not the people or the money, it's the impact that you have on people or the community. And that's kind of what we live on. And that's our slogan, standing for greatness. And we try to carry that in all things that we do.
What you have said is that you have to have both kind of people. Like, you have to have people who are in the field and who are doing the work, and you have to have backup as well, your bench strength. And you also mentioned that you have to analyze the values of the people. You cannot just stick to numbers only. How can someone analyze the values or the beliefs or the mindset of the people he has to be working with?
And I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna put that in like more like roofing business terms. Like I used to have sales guys that would get frustrated. Other guys weren't performing at their level. And I said, you're always gonna need the $10 an hour guy. Now this is always gonna need the $10 an hour guy. Now, whether that $10 an hour guy wants to stay there or not, you're always gonna need them. Ideally, you want to train them up to be better, but some people are always just going to be comfortable in that area. And that's okay. That's their lifestyle. They're going to excel at that. And it's going to be up to them whether or not they want to move on. And you can nurture that or you can accept it. And there's certainly some guys that are there, and as much as you want to encourage them, they might be comfortable, and then you nurture that and you accept that. And so I've had to teach my guys, quit looking at everybody else and complaining where people are at, because you need those different positions. And so getting that culture to round out that way to say, hey, you can't expect everybody to be on your level or complain about this person. Let's either nurture it or use it as a training tool to either bring them up or to accept them, right? And that way it creates more of a round table versus a square table of everybody kind of like looking at what everybody else is doing, right? And so that's always like a character focus that I try to do, is then create more acceptance of the different levels of people's performance or abilities, right? Or where they're comfortable at, right?
Thank you for elaborating that in roofing terms, because I think that is what roofing contractors need as well. You are talking about analyzing people, you are talking about analyzing their values, you are talking about analyzing their strengths. But how can someone even realize that he is in the position to analyze other people, or he is actually making the right analysis?
Now, as an owner, I think that has to be your gift. I mean, that has to be something either you have to study on or learn it or gifted with, is to analyze people. And that's what good leaders do, right? They're able to read the room and understand people's emotions and needs and then tend to those or whatever it is, right? Or have a calling to bring them forward. As far as a managerial position, that sometimes that is hard. And what you need to do is a lot of that's going to be based on performance. Or so for instance, you ask, how can you analyze somebody's gifts, right? So in my company, we all start off as a junior project manager, and you have to show that you can network to get to a senior level, which is in-home sales, or get to that level of where, hey, we're going to bring you to the next step. We have to see that you can actually perform high here, right? It's just like, to go back to sports, you can't be off the bench until I can see, A, you're a high performing team player, you're a high performing scorer, defender. So a lot of that is going to be based on statistics and performance. So you're going to look at that, right? Now, some of those statistics and performance could be character based, right? Well, I'm not scoring enough, or I'm not playing enough. Well, are you practicing hard enough? Are you putting in the time and the work? And most of the time, the answer is no. Hey, if you want to get to the next level, I have to see that you're putting in the time and the work. So when they come to me and they want something, or they're saying they're not getting enough, you can basically look at their lifestyle, their hour, their determination. Are you going to the networking groups? Are you doing the thing to get to that next level? And so once again, a lot of that's comfortability. And, before you even interview somebody, are you somebody who just needs a comfortable salary? And if the answer is yes, this probably isn't a good fit for you, because in sales and in roofing, there's no floor and there's no ceiling. So you can fall or you can blow the ceiling off. And so when you look at that comfortability spot, you need guys who are going to need good training, little hand holding, and move through that performance level. And that's how either a manager or a leader is going to know, are you gifted in that area, or do you need to stay in that area, or are you ready to move up? Are you the $10 an hour guy that's not wanting to go networks and hustle and grind, right, to get to that next level? Or are you comfortable just making your daily pay to go manage jobs in your great customer service? Hey, if this isn't for you and you don't want to get to the high performing sales level and you just want to watch jobs, you're going to be the $10 an hour guy, and that might be your comfort level until you're ready or trained up. But hey, your customer service is great. You're great with customers. You're good at them. So I'm not going to force you to move up. That's going to be a personal decision you make, but we need you there. So therefore, now we have a great project manager. And you look at the different levels and positions where people are going to go. And in my company, some people have stayed, some people have gone up very quickly, and some people hit up extremely fast and have blown the roof off. And so it's going to be based on the amount of work you put in and their performance.
I feel that what you are saying is that you have to have that mentality of improving constantly, even if you are not an A player. And at times, if you are not an A player, you are not an high performer, but you have that curiosity to learn things, to learn new ways of doing things, and to do your best, then God will reward you in some ways, because sometimes it is not written in your hands to be succeeding at something specific. But maybe if you are curious, God can reward you in some other way. Just from this answer of yours, I have a lot of other questions that are posing up in my mind. But before that, I want to ask you, you mentioned about like you need to have this gift of analyzing people as a leader. And I believe that even if you have this gift, you need experiences as well that allow you to take this gift out of yourself and implement it or use it. So when you started Red Rock Roofing, which is your roofing company, I'm sure that you did not have any structure in your mind regarding how to structure people or how to put people in the right seats. So how did you learn that, and how did you bring your gift out?
It's funny when you say bring your gift out. Before I got into roofing, I was like least likely to be in roofing. I don't know if we'll ever get into my story at some point, but I was least likely to be in construction in my family, pretty boy, personal trainer, and this and that, worked in tax law. And I always told people, like, literally, I would sit with someone like you and say, you know what? I don't think I could ever own my business. I think I just need to be the guy who works for somebody and be told what to do. It's just who I am. And God was like, no, no, no. You get into roofing, and all of a sudden, I realized I have these talents and gifts, and delegating is probably one of the best ones I have. That's one gift you have to have. Otherwise, you're a big time micromanager, and nobody likes that. So when I started Red Rock Roofing, a lot of it's trial and error. You look at people's responses based on your response, right? So I'm the initiator. My employees are the respond. How I initiate is going to be how they respond. How I initiate is how my company's going to perform, right? So if I initiate with micromanagement, frustration, a lot of times what I see in a lot of companies is when owners are not responsible with their finances, then they get a little desperate, or they operate out of fear, right? And so when you are responsible with your finances, which I would say is number one, you have to stay capital strong. That way, when the downtimes come, your employees, you never want your employees to feel it, right? That's
Mhm.
not their problem.
Mhm.
Nobody likes to be micromanaged. You're looking to hire grown adults. You want to inspire, not micromanage, but more inspire. So that's number two. And I've always kind of had that personality trait, but when we first started, I remember we didn't have as many guys, but I would kind of where are you at today? What are you doing today? What are you doing? And I was just always trying to do that versus more check in and inspire. And I think over time, what happened was versus the response, like, what does he want from me today? It became, hey, what's going on? Because they knew when I called you, it was just to say hi or to check in with you, and it never felt this pressure. And that makes them feel valued. And so, especially today's generation and, Generation Z, X, whatever, Y, B, Z, they all want to feel like they're part of something and feel valued, right? And we all do, whether in marriage,
Yes, yes.
friendship, and employment. It's not old school where you just show up and you grind and you go home and you had a long day of work. It's like we want to feel like we're part of something bigger and feel valued. So I think the most important part of a leadership is one, I see too many guys working in the business, not on the business, which a lot of us in some ways, you always have to kind of be in the business. But I remember for a while there, I'd sit down and I'd have so much to do that when guys came into my office, I was too busy on the computer that I'd give them just like maybe 20% of my mind.
Mhm.
And they could tell I was a little rushed, like, what do you need? And I realized that's not what I ever want to be. I want to make sure when these guys come to the office, I have the time and capacity to put whatever it is down and engage with them so that they felt valued, especially by me, that they're not just somebody coming through the office. So I made sure that I put more people in places, and that's delegation. You need to delegate. You got to give up control. Mark Cuban once told me, and it's hit strong with me. He didn't tell me, but
Mhm.
I heard him say it. Perfection prohibits profitability. Not everything always needs to be perfect. And by taking your hands off, not only will you, it's like your kids, you have to let them fail. By their failures, and then you don't reprimand them, you teach them. Every time somebody fails in my company, they've never felt reprimanded. I hope they've always felt like they've been given grace, and then it's a learning moment. Now, if it's negligent and they've tried to learn it too many times, then it's like, now you're going to pay for it. I can yell at you, but now you're going to pay for it, not me, right? So giving grace, giving love, treating them as if most opportunities are learning, but then also giving them your time. And I'm now able to give my employees the time and attention that they want and that they need and they deserve. And then, of course, I still have my stuff to do. And not every minute of the day can I give them 100% of me. That's just not ideal, just like any friendship or marriage, but making sure that they feel important. So from the beginning to the end, that is kind of the course that I've moved through to make sure that that is my number one role. So
I remember you mentioned Mark Cuban. I remember Dan Martell, and he says pretty much same thing as well. He says that 80% of something done by someone else is far better than 100% of something done by you. At times, we are looking over someone's work and we are seeing and we try to jump in the process. We feel that we are adding value to this person's work. But in reality, what we are doing is that we are micromanaging that person. How can someone figure out that I am micromanaging this process or this person and I need to step back?
I try to always do things that relate to other things you're dealing with in life. And anybody that's read a parenting book is when your kid is going through something, if you jump in and save them every time, what happens? We all know the answer, right? Now, I used to be very guilty of that here. I realized I am a great evangelist. I can bring people to the water. I can say, come with me. I'm a great leader in that way. But as far as the training goes, my mind works fast. I'm a little quick to things and I do like to jump in. So sometimes you have to know where your strengths start and where they stop, right? And that's the other thing with a good leader is like, hey, I know I'm good at this. I know I'm not good at this. I am not a good trainer because I do like to jump in. So really, when it comes to something like that, you either have to mentally tell yourself, don't jump in, don't do that because you know what you're doing. And it's also you realize you're frustrating people. So it's like, and when it comes to some of those other things, find somebody else that's more gifted at having that ability or capability to gently come in and be part of that solution. So if you notice somebody keeps doing something and every time you jump in, you're like, no, 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 right? They're not receiving you well because maybe you're not gifted in that area. So you need to help somebody else who is, whether it's a manager spot or even somebody else to say, hey, you're really good at this. Could you help XYZ with this process to help them learn it so that they can be more fluent or functional in whatever it is they're doing? But you can't jump in every time, right? Like you just can't do that. So yeah, nobody likes that. So I think it's really, once again, about delegating, either catching yourself or understanding that that's not helping, once again, like raising the kid, that you're not doing any good by letting them either figure it out on their own. Guys are going to fail, right? It's not going to be the end of the world, right? You just don't want catastrophic events. And roofing, I'm like, if nobody falls off and dies, nothing gets burned down, right? OSHA doesn't kill you, right? Like those three things, everything else is fixable. Everything else is trial and error. And by the guys failing and figuring it out, if you step in and yell at them and figure it out for them, then they don't do it, right? So getting them to do it. And then again, hey, this is not my strong point. Let me find somebody who can work with you good on this and you guys can collaborate and it's good. So I stopped training a long time ago for that reason.
Do you feel that we can minimize this failure of a person by hiring the right person in the first place?
I mean, yeah, sometimes you're going to hire somebody and you can ask all the right questions. And, there's such a need for people out there right now. It's easy to just want to hire everybody that walks in the door. But once you've been doing it a while, you're going to say, I've been doing this long enough to say that this isn't going to be the right fit. At some point, there has to be reprimanding, right? It's like any job. Hey, it depends on the level of failure. It's like, are they teachable? Are they moldable? If not, then it might not be the best fit for them. And then you look for them either in another position that might be a benefit, and maybe that's not their strength. I've had guys get moved into positions thinking they were ready, giving the opportunity, not getting the response or performance that you're looking for out of them. And of course, they have to go back. And again, just like sports, I mean, guys are going to go, they're going to be moved up. They're not going to perform to the level that you need them to, and you might have to move them back down. Now, does that mean they shouldn't be on the team? No, it just means they're not ready yet and they might need more coaching. And then obviously there's just what you really need to look for that's not good for the team is character, right? Performance can be worked on and moved around. Character is the thing that'll kill the culture and kill everything. If they're not willing, if they're not able and they have gifts, you can put them somewhere. If they're not willing, if they're negative, the whole saying, if they're cancerous, these are the things that are really non-negotiables that just have to go.
I agree with you on this. And I also feel that nowadays, we like these charismatic people. Like if someone walks into a room and if we have that charismatic personality, we feel that charm. We just slide, and we try to have that person on in the team. Just like you said, that you cannot analyze someone with 10 to 15 questions in the interview, or that 1 hour, 2 hour. Even if you spend 3 days or 7 days in an interview, you cannot know what the character of a person is. So how do you find out this character thing in someone when he walks into the door and he is trying to be a part of your team? Do you look at the skills, the mindset, the energy? Like, how do you analyze someone? He has the character that allows him or that validates him to be part of Red Rock Roofing.
That's a great question. You know, it's easy, right? When you look for somebody, you do want somebody that's charismatic. We're in roofing sales, right? You want somebody that's charismatic, likable, good smile like yourself there. Um, and draws attention to the room, right? You're like, this guy's going to be good with homeowners. He's a rock star, right? I think on the flip side of that, though, it's crazy. I'm going to tell you a story, and this is like
Mhm.
where your mind's got to turn a little bit. So I hired this guy, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that. He worked in Boulder. Everybody knows Boulder. He was like
Mm.
a scientist, tech, analyze. And normally you would say there's no way this guy could do sales, but you know what changed it? And then I'm going to elaborate. He's a bodybuilder. He's 18, 19 years old, won competitions. He has a really good job, and for whatever reason, he wants to get into roofing sales. And what I saw in him was whatever he's doing, he's driven at. He's won competitions in bodybuilding. He's
Mhm.
working on this like super high tech lab stuff. He's smart and he's driven, which tells me whatever goal he sets to, he's going to find a way to do it. So even though talking to him one on one, you would think he can't knock doors, he can't sell, he can't talk to, he's one of my best guys I've ever had. Driven, successful at a young age because he just focuses and goes. Whereas the charismatic guy sometimes bounces around all over the place and you can't get him to focus a little bit. So our motto in our company is driven with purpose, loving always in all ways within a culture of selflessness, right? So when I'm asking questions like that, one of the biggest things I try to find out is not what makes him qualified for the job, but
Mhm.
what makes him qualified for the culture. Do you have not that it is a game breaker, but do you have a family? What do you like
Mhm.
to do outside of work? What are your passions? What drives you? These are the things that's like, if these things are dialed in, chances are we can get you somewhere here. None of my best sales guys that I've ever had were that super
Mhm.
charismatic guy, nor did they come from sales. They came from something totally opposite, but they were driven, good, hardworking family guys that wanted to find a career that they could be successful at. And we were able to offer that, and they excelled. And most of the guys that have been with me are 5 years and longer.
That actually sums up the point that we made earlier as well, that if you are curious about something and if you want to be the best at something, God's gonna reward you in some other way. Maybe if you are working at some other place and you end up being a sales guy, but you have that mindset to not give up, you will actually be rewarded.
We're going to go back to basketball. The
Huh?
LeBron James are the charismatic people in the room, right? They like to be what? The center of attention. I tell
Yeah.
my guys all the time, what would it be like to have 5 LeBron James on the same team? It would be tough. So you got to be really careful if you get too many charismatic guys on one team, because they like to be the center of attention. They want all the leads and they
Yes.
want all the glory. So when you get all those guys in one room together, this is what you're going to get. So be careful
Yes.
only looking for charismatic guys. And if you do, make sure they have a real good sense of character and
Hmm.
confidence in a genuine and humble way, because they're going to be competing against other guys within the organization. And if you get too many charismatic guys in one room, it's not always a good thing.
Thank you. And I have never ever like thought of it like this, that if you have all the charismatic guys, they're gonna collide with each other. Thank you for sharing that.
As an
And
owner, it'll make you go crazy.
because they don't want to listen to you. You know what? I have a question here for people like me. Like, I feel I fall for these charismatic guys, and I know there will be plenty of others like me as well who are in the roofing industry and roofing business owners. Are there any set of questions or some things that you can use, some phrases or some questions that you can ask someone in the interview, even if like, you know that you fall for charismatic people, or you have the tendency to hire the wrong people, but you have these 5 or 10 questions that can save you from falling into this trap?
You know, you always got to have one or two guys that money drives them, right? But asking questions about what drives them, if it's very materialistic, you know that when they come on board, they're going to be very driven and they're going to help you be very successful because they're money driven, right? But I didn't get all the leads. You know, why did he get leads? Why did, you know, you're going to create some issues there if you get too many guys that are driven by money because they're always going to be concerned about what they're getting because that's their motive and their motivation. So when you ask these questions, you want to make sure that, yeah, money is a factor to get you where you want to go, but it's not the moving factor. It's, man, I really want to make sure my family gets taken care of. I really want to, you know, get my kids to college. I really want to provide for my wife one day. You know, whatever the thing is, you want to make sure that their motivating factor and their driven purpose is not so materialistic and that it's driven from the heart. And I got to tell you, I got a couple guys that are very money driven. But throughout the time, once again, making young men leaders, and it's a lot of young guys. They all see their TikToks. They all see guys in roofing posting their Lamborghinis and stuff. And it's like, listen, we can afford Lamborghinis. We could go buy 5 cash right now, but we want to be investors. And I want to teach my guys like, hey, instead of doing that, why don't we invest our money? Why don't you set up your future? And so I get to mold these guys into something better. So once again, as long as they're also moldable and teachable, I can take them from this materialistic mindset and move them over. But you got to be careful looking for those guys. So really asking the questions of like, hey, what motivates you? What's your moving factor? If you made $1 million, oh, I've invested all. Like, dude, that's what I'm talking about. You know, I want to buy 3 investment properties. Those are the guys that you're looking for. And especially when guys are smart with their money, good questions to ask is like, you have a lot of money in savings. Are you coming from a good job already? Because guys that are broke or spend their money as quick as they get it, all of a sudden their money problems become your money problems. And then just like the micromanaging owner that wasn't good with his money, now you got the micromanaging angry employee that's not good with his money that's creating issues. And so you really want to also look for guys who are they're going to make a lot of money, but they're going to save a lot of money. And that's what keeps them happy and rolling, right? And then there's going to be downtimes and their problems aren't your problems. And it creates less turnover because now they're not like, crap, the season's come. Now I got to go find another job. It's like, you want guys that are going to make good money, save good money, and they're going to be long-term better employees as well. So looking how their spending habits are and what they like to spend their money on is also a good thing.
Perfect. I know that I interview people as well, and at times they pretend or they try to be in your good books because obviously they have to get this job. Is there any moment where you knew that you are asking these questions about money, about mindset, about habits, and about savings and all that, and you know that the other person is trying to deceive you and he is lying maybe, or he is just not being genuine? How do you end that interview, or how do you make sure that this person, if he goes to the next interview, at least he has the context that he does not need to say these things to impress someone?
Do you have kids?
No, I'm not married and I'm single. I don't have kids.
You were a kid once though, I assume?
Yeah.
You're probably a good kid though. Like most kids are, right? Did your parents know when you were lying or trying to deceive them? And could you tell, but they never said anything?
I think they know every time and they do
They know
not
every
say a
time.
thing.
You know, these guys always tell me it's funny when you're an owner. I always be funny how many times you notice I make analogies out of things, but like they're like, do you know? They'll try to tattletale, and I'm like, when you're a parent, you just know. And when somebody's doing something or being a certain way, it's like a kid. You know when they're lying, but not every battle's worth being fought. Especially like once they're in the organization. Not every battle is worth being fought. Sometimes you got to let kids work their own stuff out and you got to continue to mentor them, but you don't need to pull them into the principal's office every single time. Like he did this, he did that. But back to the interview, and that's one of the gifts you should have is like, what are their eyes telling you? What's their body language telling you? Is this story seem fabricated? Is it jiving with the rest of their story and their lifestyle? Is it all coming together? And is there a sense of genuinism coming across the table? And all that stuff is like, you've just got to be in a place with discernment and ability to be able to read the room to understand that. And if they're not going to be honest about that stuff, you got to know, is this a young guy just really trying to get to a next level? Because I've also said, I knew a guy once, his name was Josh Gallo. I met him when he was like 18, 19. This kid was always talking about how he was so high level, but he was flipping pizzas. But everything he did, he was like, he was an investor in this. He had money shares in this. And eventually I was like, none of that's true. But I love that he was speaking about his life as if it was, not as if it is. But his heart and his intention was not bad in the sense of like he was a good Christian guy. He was such a loving, good guy. And so it's like, I never wanted to call him out once I understood, like, he's just trying to project what he wants as if he was actually living in it. And today, he's one of the most successful guys I know at his age. And so in some ways, it's like, what is the intention of the heart and the character, even if they are deceiving you a little bit? Because just like any guy, are they trying to impress you? Are they nervous? Is their heart good? Or are they just like way off key? And so you also have to say, is this a young kid that I see as a moldable heart that's just trying to say something? Can I guide him? Or is he just some guy that's going to come in and be a wreck, right? So there are those factors that you want to take place. And for a company and a guy like me, I like bringing young guys in that I can shape. And so one of my top guys, Austin, he came in at me 19 years old, just had a kid, had no idea what he was doing, lost his job at Amazon, had no money, just a wreck. Wearing his shorts and his earrings every day. I let him slide for 4 months. I was like, I don't know if this kid's going to make it, but I have some passion for him. I sat him down. I said, you're going to put some pants on. You're going to take those earrings off and you're going to do this damn thing. Today, he thanks me every day for being closer to his daughter. And
Austin is actually a great friend of mine on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Austin, yeah.
Yeah.
The dude thanks me every day for having the best relationship with his kid, owns a house, all his vehicles paid off. So just because they're deceiving you in that moment doesn't necessarily make them a bad fit. You have to look past even that into something deeper.
And before moving into the next phase of this interview, where we talk about the culture and how to build that, is there something that you feel roofing business owners are doing wrong around you in terms of hiring? And is there any advice or any solution that you have for them?
If I was to say, and I'm not here to tell anybody how to run their business, some guys have been really successful doing it, but what I see most of all happening in the roofing industry that I don't personally like, a hire and fire platform. We're going to hire as many sales guys as we can, see who sticks. And when the other ones go, we're going to hire some more. And the problem I see with that is, one, all those guys are competing for the same amount of work inside their company and whatever they can provide, right? They're like, if I have 100 guys and each one can get me one deal, that's 100 deals for the month. But that's only one deal for those guys. Where the business may flourish, the guys will not, number one, which is why it just keeps being a revolving door. That's number one. Number two is you've got so many guys out there now that don't know what they're talking about or doing, selling people things or giving people things or identifying things on a roof that are not factual, let's say. You're getting bad information because you've got too many guys who aren't trained or skilled enough to give good advice, let's say a leak or something like that. I can't tell you how many leaks I've gone to where it's like, well, he said it's over there. I'm like, that's because that company doesn't, they're just hiring, firing guys so you get new guys. And the third biggest thing that I think is the biggest problem with that, if you've got 50 sales guys in a company and each of them are only getting one deal and maybe you got 3 of them getting more deals and they're not making enough money, when sales guys aren't being successful and they need that paycheck, they're going to tell every homeowner what? This roof is shot.
Yes.
You need to buy the roof. Because my guys are so trained and skilled and have such a good safe space or like, there's so much security. My guys are highly trained that when they get to a roof and if it doesn't need to be done, let's be honest and let's keep the relationship. That's why we have some of the biggest realtors out in the market today referring us and using us for their business because they know they're going to get an honest assessment from us versus always just trying to buy the roof. Sales guys that aren't being successful are going to look for the sale, not the relationship, because they need to get that next paycheck. So when a lot of these companies are doing that, that's some of the 3 biggest issues that I find. You're not getting guys be successful. You're having to hire and fire way too many people and you're not getting honest assessments out there. I mean, we do the volume with the few guys that we have that companies with 50, 30 to 50 sales guys have. And it's because my guys have taken the time to build the networks, the relationships, create the honest values, evaluations and things like that.
I have interviewed like more than 50 roofing contractors so far who are business owners. And something that you have said uniquely in this interview is that you are building your company for the people. Like I see roofing businesses on social media. They brag about doing 100 jobs per month, exactly the way you just mentioned that every single guy is bringing one roof and they do 100 roofs a month, even more than that. but they do not care about their people. And my original question about how to build a roofing business culture was different, but now I am rephrasing that. A lot of times when we ask someone about how to build the culture for a company, they tell you about the mindset, they tell you about the vision, they tell you about the mission, they tell you about alignment. And every time it is my company and you have to align with this vision. But rarely do we see someone who talks about, I am building this thing for my people. And that is one of the reasons I feel that people are not dedicated to the culture of your roofing company, no matter how good that sounds on paper. So, how can someone create a culture for their roofing business, and how they can ensure that people are dedicated towards that culture?
I guess with everything you said, I guess it comes down to this. It's not, hey guys, how can you show up for me today? It's, hey guys, how can I show up for you today? I mean, it's that simple, right? Like we all have our job to do and we're all creating a mission, but whenever, even when people identify me as their boss, I'm like, I don't like that. I like that we work together with each other, side by side, not me as your boss, and I hope everybody feels that they're treated respectfully and kindly by me. And sometimes I have to make authoritative decisions or direct decisions. And that's just because I've got the experience most of the time. They come for me with a problem and I have a direct solution because I've got the experience. But otherwise, you know, nobody wants to feel like they're under anybody. They want to feel like we are all a team in this together. And so I think it really just comes down to that. And yeah, did it start with my vision? Yes. Does somebody need to be the one that takes the front? But really, it's like, how do we round that out, right? It shouldn't be a line in my eyes. It should be a round table, a circle. And that's what I've always worked on and tried to create here. And obviously, there's always going to be some wrinkles in that.
Okay. And what are the wrinkles that you face during the process?
It's like there's high performing, low trust, high trust, mid performing. You rather have, the high trust. And it's like a lot of times it's just getting that scale to be where you need it to be. And, when you get, like I said, too many of the high performers up here, it can get a little catty sometimes. It's really ironing out some of that. A lot of, finger pointing, stupid things like where are all the leads going, and people getting concerned, like one person's getting all the leads. So then you get all the phone recordings and you record every single phone call and you identify where all the leads are, just taking these extra and necessary and precautious steps to debunk certain ideas. And for me, a lot of the recalls come from perception, not reality, right? So a sales guy's like, oh, he's getting, or he's doing, and a lot of that being, and it's like, you guys aren't looking at this you're looking at it more from an insecurity than a fact-based place, right? So you're assuming or you're perceiving that something is happening. Whereas as the parent, you're like, no, that's not the case. Why does he get all the da-da-da? And you're like, no, it's fair between your brother and sister. You just feel that way because you didn't, whatever. And so it's like, little kids quarreling over who gets the toy when it's like, guys, you both have toys. It's all even. It's all fair. It's teaching everybody to share and be kind on a grown-up sense. And so those are usually the wrinkles that you have to iron out. And so sometimes it has to do with really just one-on-one, two grown-ups maybe working it out themselves, sitting down with somebody, letting them vent their frustrations, and then maybe validating them and letting them just get it off their chest. Some of it might even have to come to actually identifying whatever their concern is and be able to provide the actual facts. So for instance, I record every phone call that comes into this office. A few people concerned what leads are going out. So I have a non-biased party come in. We listen to the last 200 recordings, write down where the leads went, making sure all the right questions are being asked. Everything's debunked. Now, some people, like these high anxious people, no matter what you do, sometimes you're just going to have to let them iron out their own head. The wrinkles are in their head, and sometimes you have to give them space and time to iron it out themselves.
How did you learn this? Like, you are coming from a background that is not specifically related to roofing, and obviously when you are a leader, you have your managers, then they have laborers as subordinates, and there is friction in the bottom line of this company, of the hierarchy. And a lot of times you don't even know as a leader that there is some friction going on. So how can you take control, or how can you minimize that friction that is going in downwards hierarchy?
Like most roofing companies, that are mid, even large size, there's no HR department, there's, it's usually an owner, and you normally know when that stuff is going on, and you try to get involved when if you need and feel. But you know that this is the tricky one that you're always going to face in high sales. A lot of personalities. Salespeople are high personalities. It's not a labor job where they just come to work, they sit on the service line, everybody does their job, the whistle blows, and they go home. And there's a lot of personalities that run around and they off each other and they entertain other ideas, and they see ideas on Facebook and social media about, if you get the money guy at that and you see the shiny toys. And so it's like, how do you keep bringing that in? And your question is how do you kind of, deal with that? I've kind of learned sometimes these guys are adults. Sometimes you just don't. Sometimes, you got to let them work out their own mind. Sometimes a lot of it's just a level of maturity that they have to work on in themselves. Before, I wanted to fix everything as guys, just like in a marriage. Like sometimes we just want to run in and fix everything all the time. Sometimes we just need to sit back and listen, and sometimes we need to just sit back and watch, unless it's a danger thing, right? So really, as I've grown in this, a lot of this has been faith in God. A lot of times as an owner, you think, God, if I don't fix this, like it's all going to fall apart. Like I have to make sure everybody's happy and I have to fix all this. And like you'd lose sleep on it. And the longer I've done this, it's like the old cliche saying, let go and let God. I can't fix everything. Sometimes you guys are just going to have to figure this out on your own. And if you're not happy about something, sometimes that's your own fault. And if you want to talk to me about it, my door's open, but I can't fix all your guys' stuff all the time. And you guys are grown adults and have to learn how to fix it. So no matter where you're at, people aren't going to agree and they're going to do things, but it's not our job to step in every single time and deal with it. So when you get that friction,
Mhm.
I've actually taken my hands off it quite a bit, and it goes better, honestly. And you sleep better at night. It usually works itself out. Some people just get in habits and modes and their mind starts clicking, and you just need to give them space and time to work through that. And if they get to a place where they just can't handle it, they're going to let you know.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I also feel that if you keep reminding people the bigger mission or the purpose they are working for, then all these small conflicts and the nitty gritty, they do not matter, because they feel that we are working for that bigger purpose, or we are working for the vision that you have created. And speaking of this, I want to ask you, Steve, that a lot of times we have our culture, we have our missions, just as you spoke that it was your vision. So we just paste that on the wall, and we have a yearly meeting or a quarterly meeting, or I do not know how many meetings are required, but it just becomes a one time thing. Like we sit down once a year and we discuss our culture, we discuss if we are aligned towards our vision or our purpose, but no one takes them seriously. So, what is your process at Red Rock Roofing to ensure that people stay focused and stay aligned and stay loyal to the mission that you are working
I found what's really effective lately. Once a quarter, we probably do that. But I
on?
found what happens when I pray with our team, when everybody bows their head and they hear me pray for each person individually in the team, and I lift each individual up in front of everybody else. When your head is bowed and you hear somebody speak out on somebody's gifts, let's say people are pointing fingers, I really make it known that we all have our downfalls, but we also all have our gifts. When I create a communal prayer over our team, that really helps lift people up. Number one. Number two is people watch you, right? So if I'm saying you need to be a leader and I'm not in the community doing that myself, right? And I'm showing flashy dollars, which I don't, right? People are going to see what I'm doing in the community when I'm interacting with communities and also setting up community events. So like I'm getting ready to call the Hope House and set up a team event where we can go and volunteer together. And so when we can do team events where we're also being something part of a community, or if when they see my social media and I'm mentioning community, you have to lead with what you're saying. Number one, you have to be that. If they see you saying something and you're not living it, it's just like a parent. If I'm telling you to do something and I'm not living it, they don't care what you say. They care what you do. Number one. And getting the team together to fulfill that purpose together. So if you're community driven, but you're not getting out in the community doing things together, those are the things where they feel value and come together and they're experiencing it together. And so those couple things really help with that. Trying to find those things that back up whatever vision or mission that you're saying, making sure that they're watching you doing it, they see you do it, and that you're fulfilling it. And doing it as a team is really important too. One of the fun events we've done is on Kindness Day. I forget what it's called, Kindness Day. I gave everybody, a set amount of cash and I said, pair up and get out in the community and start buying people's groceries, filling up people's gas tanks. And the stories that we got to hear at the end of the day of what people, I mean, me and my other manager, Jim, we're waiting and stocking people out in the grocery stores, waiting to see whose groceries we're going to buy next. And we're filming it, and we come up, we're like, hey, we're going to just little things like that gets people excited on your team. And it really kind of helps solidify that vision and mission. So,
Have you heard of how Google and all these big companies, they manage their people and they make sure that the people are aligned with their culture?
of course you hear it. They create a fun atmosphere, right? They want to create an atmosphere that people enjoy working at, right? Like they want to come to
Yes.
work and feel like I want to get up and go to work because when I get there, it's enjoyable. I mean,
Yes.
you hear about the
You know,
skateboards and the deals and the
they have created something that is a mechanism that is based on three things. Number one is conversation. Number two is feedback. And number three is recognition. And these are the exact same things that you discussed with me, even though you do not know the recipe. At times, you have to be strict or be straight, and you have to tell people that stop bitching around and just get this work done. This is called criticism that I feel not many roofing business owners know how to give constructive criticism. They just bash someone, or they do destructive criticism, and they feel that we are working on someone's improvement. So how do you make sure that you are giving someone constructive feedback instead of destructive feedback?
they're going to know if you respect them or not. If you're somebody who respects people and loves people, you're going to be received better, right? So you need to first look at who you are as a person and how you're treating people in an everyday atmosphere, just on a normal level, to make sure that you are even in a place where you can tell somebody that. Because, no matter who you are in a friendship or parenting role or whatever you are, if you're not loving first and then you criticize, it's never going to be received well. So you have to make sure when you're ready to give criticism, and I even think that whole old cliche sandwich thing works. Hey, brother, I just want you to know, man, thank you so much. People want to hear thank you
Yeah.
too, like, especially as an owner. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. Good job at this. Hey, man, you're really good at this. Or, dude, thanks for being out there today. Thanks for picking that up. Hey, next time, if you wouldn't mind, you ask them, or I would try. And this is just a level of respect that anybody should expect. I don't care who you are, what you're doing. If you're going to criticize somebody, do it in a way that you're wanting to make them better, not reprimand them, right? You're using that as a teaching and learning opportunity to make them a better employee, person, whatever. Now, if they're, back in my day 10 years ago, I caught a guy with, you know, needles, in his truck. And I'm just like, you've had to fire people and that's like a different situation, right? Like where you have to like, hey, this is done, you're fired type thing. But even then, whatever the case is, treat people with respect, love them, and you're never going to burn a bridge too. That's always been kind of my motto. Don't burn your bridges. Even the people I've had to fire or have left, we still talk today from however many years ago because people value you as a mentor and that that they're going to love you and that you're a safe place to go to. So I know this is probably, me, I'm long-winded if you can't tell by now, but I'm passionate about this stuff. And I think it's something that I really try to dial in is loving on people so that they feel respected, even at the times where you got to come down on them. So it's not in that moment, it's how are they treated up to that point is going to be whether or not they receive it well or not.
Yes, and my mentor taught me a few years back that whenever you are having a goodbye with someone or you are wishing them, you are having the last conversation, just make sure that whenever you meet next time, you can look into that person's eye. And if you just follow this, you will never disrespect someone. And speaking of criticism, I also want to ask you, Steve, that a lot of times that as leaders, we want to give criticism, but when someone criticizes us on our wrongdoings or on our stuff, we do not know how to handle that criticism. So I will break that down into two questions. First of all, how do you make sure as a business owner that you receive criticism as well, that you make yourself open enough so people can analyze you and criticize you? That is the first point. And the second point is, once the criticism is there, how do you ensure that you are not reacting to that criticism, you are responding to that?
That's hard to do as guys, number one, we're bosses, we're leaders. So we're used to, you know, giving instruction or creating the deal and not telling us, right? And we're men, so I asked my wife, I'm great at, telling, but as soon as criticism's given, defensiveness is, in our blood. It's our nature.
Yes.
So it's a lifelong learning thing. Ask our wives, every wife out there is like, do your husbands get defensive? And it's like, it's just kind of how we're built, right? So I think naturally defensiveness is always going to happen, right? But I've taught my guys, even with criticism to them, or even in a marriage and relationship, any counselor is going to tell you, it's like how you set it up is everything, right? Like you can't just pull somebody in and blindside them and go and this and this and this and this, right? Like, and I've done that before and it doesn't go well. And so you're like, and then you have to quickly apologize. Like if you offend somebody, you do have to quickly apologize. That's number one. Like, hey man, I could see you're right. That probably came across wrong. Please forgive me. Let's try that again or next time. But when people have offered me criticism, most of my guys are really humble and kind guys. So it's not a big issue here. I've had a couple where it's a little more harsh. And so we've
Hmm.
had to work on almost like a counseling session, like, hey, next time, would you mind? The way I communicate, I receive it better if you, or when you say it like this, it makes me feel right, like old school counseling. So if next time, if you could, I would respond better if, and start opening that line of communication so that people understand, hey, when you present it this way, I respond better and we can have an open if you come this way, it actually heightens me. And so just teaching my guys like, hey, if you've got an issue, when you got an issue, this is a good time, let's make sure we set it up. This is a good time to do it. And so most of my guys kind of have that understanding with me now, and how you do it is everything, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, when you say it, those types of things. So I think it's important that you communicate with your guys almost as if you're in an actual relationship on, how you communicate and things like that. And then also give them the freedom to do that as well. Like, and that way each individual is, it's like our love languages and and the way we like to receive things. We all respond and react differently based on how we're talked to or what we're given. And so understanding each of your employees and kind of knowing that, reciprocate that accordingly back and forth. And so if I can be open with them about that for the guys who do challenge me, it goes a lot better so that they approach me softer.
Do you also need to ask the same question to your team members as well? Like as a leader, do you also need to ask your team that how do you like to receive criticism?
I'm pretty lucky. I've only got maybe 2 or 3 out of 17 that kind of like get into that arena. It ebbs and flows. It's like friendships, right? And there's like
Mhm.
weeks when your marriage is just like flowing. And then there's those weeks where you really got to focus on these like, communication skills, and so I'd say for those 3 guys, yes, I think it is important to go, okay, I can see when I say this or do this that, this happens. And so what is a way that we can fix this so that our communication is better down the road? And I think that it's a relationship, right? You spend more time with these guys than anybody else, and they're working for you and you're working for them, and the relationship is tight, and you're in roofing. So all sorts of things are flying around. So what can we do to make sure that our communication is good for each other? Right. And I think that's important. And I think that's important in any relationship.
Why do you feel like I feel this? I do not know if you would agree with me on this or not. That when we talk about people in a roofing business, a lot of times, or 90% of the times, our focus is only on the sales department. And even if we are talking about hiring, even if we're talking about firing, we are just talking about the sales department most of the time. But rarely do we focus on the production department, and we do not focus on how these people need to be uplifted. So if you agree with me, do you feel that, or how do you feel we can improve this thing?
I think that's a great, in the roofing industry, it's funny. This is just percolating here big time. In the production, all laborers are, 98% of all roofing companies subcontract the laborers, right? You get these crews. We're very lucky. I've had the same guys since I started 10 years ago. Its name is Juan. He carries all the crews and it's the same setup as everybody else. You got the foreman and the driver oversees the crews, and you pay that guy and he pays those guys, and you get frustrated because those guys don't ever listen. And sometimes, and the problem is, there's a language barrier. So if you pull them in a meeting, right? And there, and then you got to get 60 people plus your 17 sales guys in a meeting, all believing in the same thing. And it's easy to forget. And I've always respected them. I've always told my first, it always should move up, start at the bottom. They get respected the most. than the next guy. You need the guy doing the hard work more than you need the top guy. Those guys are easy to find. These guys, they're the ones, bleeding out for everybody else. But what I found out recently, OSHA, we're big now, so OSHA's come a couple times, and
Hmm.
luckily our paperwork's in order and whatnot. But these guys do struggle. Listen, I've always said in the industry, the tail wags the dog a little bit, right? The production is the tail and everybody else is the dog. And they call the shots. And if you tell them what to do, then they leave and they'll say, no, well, we're not going to do that or pay us more. And I'm like, I've been giving you consistent work for 10 years. So there's got to be some type of connection here where, hey, but the problem is that I found is the rest of the guys, we've sit here talking all dang hour about believing in the values, the vision and everything else. But the problem is they're not part of that. They don't hear it. They don't see it and they're not part of it. They just show up to the job. And so in the last month, we've got our English speaking guys that are bilingual that oversee them is like, guys, they know Red Rock is good. They know they have the work, but they don't know why. They don't know how. So why are we not giving them and not selling them the vision, but getting them to understand the vision? And just because they don't speak our language doesn't mean they don't have hearts and souls and want to believe in something better and that what they're doing matters and is for something greater than just making me money, right? So it's like, we need and they're not rotating. So many companies have these guys that are just rotating, but these guys have been here for a long time. I'm like, why is it taking me to understand that part of the biggest problem is that they don't understand our vision. They don't understand the why. They just show up. So now it's like, we're going to incorporating meetings that go, hey guys, this is the why. It's not just about giving you work all the time, but this is why you're working for Red Rock. And this is the mission we're trying to accomplish. This is what we want to do for you. And this is what we want to do to grow. And this is how we want to make an impact. And so if you guys do good work and you impact that and you guys don't bring OSHA and you guys do the right things, it might slow you down. But guys, we're doing something great here. This is for something bigger than just money and roofing. We're trying to give back to local schools and we're trying to make differences across the world and we're trying to be a community. And guys, I get this seems like a small part of that, but if we don't do the right things and we don't combine as a team, then there's a disconnect and the greater purpose that we can even make even bigger if we all come together. And so when you talk about production, man, I think it's a huge thing. Even I got a production manager here sits next to me and sometimes he has the old school mindset. Maybe he hears me and I have to even though you're just production telling people what to do, customer service and the way you make people feel is so important because when you call the tire store and you got Bob on the phone, that's like, tire store, what do you need? You're like, I don't feel very good. But when you call the guy that's like, hey, it's Rick. What's up, man? How you doing? And they make you feel good. Production still has an impact on how you make your employees feel when they call and need something, how your and laborers feel when you come to them. It's like they want to feel good, like they're not just the bottom. And so I'm like, I don't care where you fall in this company, the way you exude love, grace, customer experience is going to impact everybody across the board. So I'm getting all my guys to understand, how you treat these guys, number one, is a big impact, and how you talk to them and love on them helps them feel part of it. But now I want them to understand why they're part of it and what they're part of. And so I think it's really important that you talk about production and how that bleeds in because so many companies they just show up and do the work, but the company's actually here when really the company should be here.
I am actually feeling proud of you for doing that because this is something that I feel is missing in the industry overall. Even these big companies or the small companies, no one focuses on the production. And the reason I feel is that I feel production is the heart of your business because they are the actual guys doing the work. But roofing companies do not focus on their hearts, they are focusing on their face, how to make themselves appear better, but heart is something without that you cannot even live.
2 years ago, I was like, when you think of companies, we all have our annual Christmas parties and things like that. Who invites the laborers, And so 2 years ago, I had a big Christmas party at the Gaylord, which is a big, nice hotel out here and made it all fancy. And that's my big thing, give back every year is like a really fancy, nice Christmas party. And so I invited all the laborers and it was so cool to see them in there interacting. And I did raffle prizes that only they could win. And it was like nice, really nice prizes. And so it's like, I want to make sure that we keep incorporating them in that way, that they're not just subcontractors, but even though that they are actually Red Rock Roofing. And a lot of times, even myself, it's easy to dismiss that. And so over the last month, like I said, that percolation has been even rising and is getting more to the top. So
Thank you so much for giving me your time, Steve. And I'm feeling so proud for this specific portion of the interview because this is something that I really feel we should multiply. So my last question to you, Steve, is that back in the interview, you mentioned that you have to work on your business by being in your business. Like you have to stay in the business, but you have to work on the business. And you also mentioned that when you face some challenge or when you have a pushback, you do not have to show that to your team. I want to know, where does that notion come from? And if someone is facing a downtime right now, how do they come out of that by not telling their team, or by just having that lion's skin on themselves and not showing their weaknesses or the stuff they are going through to their team? How can someone come out of this downtime?
I think vulnerability versus complaining is important, right? Somebody's having a hard time, being vulnerable is great. Hey, I'm struggling with this. All right, how can we come alongside you, right? Let's call it like a band of brothers, right? How can we as a team motivate each other and inspire each other versus I'm having a hard time, let's complain about what's going wrong or why I didn't get something right. Like, how can we come together to make it better? I think when you see somebody down, I think it's important, especially as a team. Like the other day, I just called he's one of my top guys. Like, hey man, you sound down today. Like everything okay? And we do that a lot, like for each other. And he said, no, I'm good. I just got out of an attic and I hate being an addict. He was just exhausted from being in an attic. But at the end of that, he texted me, he said, hey, it really means a lot that you just checked in with me. Just showing up for people and being cognizant of people and your surroundings versus so self-focused is also important. And I think that's what we want to be as a team, is somebody, when I say that, what the last part of my statement is, within a culture of selflessness. And that's always been important. And one of the biggest turnoffs for me is when guys get selfish here and they only think about themselves. I try to really round that out fast and get them more team minded. And that really helps a lot. And that lets everybody feel loved. Even when they're not with me, they feel it from everybody else and that they're part of something of values.
Yes, thank you so much for your time, Steve. I really loved this conversation with you, and you are such a great man, I must say. And we need more people like you in the industry. We need more leaders like you as well. Any signing off notes or advice do you have for specifically for the roofing industry?
Everybody's going to do it different. I'd say, one of the biggest things I see again is be smart with your money. That way your guys don't feel it. Same with the guys. I see that all the time where, you start coming down on your guys. So, if you're a roofing owner on there, be smart with your money, pay your guys on time. Your people are what make you who you are. So treat them with the most respect, value what you have. Put you in this position for a reason. And so, don't let stress or fear run your business. Let love and grace run your business, and obviously make a decision. So, yeah, that's all I got. And I got to ask you a question. When talking to all
Yeah.
the roofing owners you have, what are some of the biggest differences that you see and that make, a good roofing company from not, let's say, not so good roofing company?
I think I have already answered this during the interview when I told you that I have interviewed so many roofing business owners, and very few of them think about their people. Most of them are self focused, and I think that is what differentiates from a big roofing company and a great roofing company. And you are building a great company. That can be a big company or that cannot be a big company. But I feel that if you focus on your people, that is something that we miss, and that is something that differentiates these roofing companies.
Good. Thanks for noticing that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been fun
and
hanging. Appreciate you.
I appreciate your time as well. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I would love to see your Halloween dress. Happy Halloween, and
I'll
have a
send you a
great
text.
day.
All
Yeah,
right.
bye
You too.
bye.
All right. See you,
Yeah,
Muhammad. Bye.
thank you.